Hello, Gooners, and welcome back to Arsenal Daily News. Today we have got not one, but two massive transfer stories that could completely reshape Arsenal's squad for next season. And trust me, you're going to want to hear every single detail of what we have uncovered. We are diving deep into Arsenal's transfer plans, with reports linking the Gunners to two incredibly exciting young talents who are turning heads across Europe. First up, we have got the Marco Pester situation, and this is where things get absolutely fascinating because Arsenal are not just competing with Premier League rivals Chelsea and Manchester United for his signature. We are talking about going head-to-head with European giants like Juventus, Barcelona, Atletico Madrid, and Bayern Munich. Yes, you heard that right. Some of the biggest clubs in world football are all circling around this 21-year-old Italian fullback who is currently tearing it up on loan at Cagliari. But that is not all. We have also got major developments on the midfield front with Sky Sports reporting Arsenal's strong interest in Elche's Rodrigo Mendoza, a 20-year-old Spanish box-to-box midfielder who could be the perfect addition to Mikel Arteta's engine room. The Spanish boss is clearly looking to add depth and quality to his squad, and Mendoza fits the profile perfectly. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty details of both these potential deals, I need to stress something important. These are not done deals. These are not advanced negotiations that Fabrizio Romano is about to drop a "here we go" for. What we are looking at here is genuine interest, shortlists being compiled, and Arsenal's recruitment team doing their homework ahead of what could be a massive summer transfer window. But the fact that Arsenal's name is being linked with these two exciting young prospects tells us everything we need to know about the club's ambitions and their transfer strategy moving forward. So buckle up, because over the next several minutes, we are going to break down exactly who these players are, why Arsenal want them, what they would bring to the Emirates, who else is in the race for their signatures, and most importantly, whether these deals make sense for Arsenal Football Club. We have got tactical analysis, contract situations, potential transfer fees, and the inside track on where Arsenal stand in both these transfer sagas. This is Arsenal Daily News, and we are about to give you the most comprehensive breakdown of Arsenal's transfer targets that you will find anywhere on YouTube. Let's get into it. Arsenal Daily News, the Marco Pester transfer battle. Hello, Gooners, and welcome back to Arsenal Daily News. Today we have got some fascinating transfer news to discuss that could have major implications for Arsenal's squad planning heading into next summer. We are going to be diving deep into the reports linking Arsenal with a move for one of Serie A's most exciting young fullbacks, Marco Pester from Atlanta. But here is where it gets really interesting. We are not alone in this chase. Chelsea and Manchester United are also reportedly in the hunt, and we have got some serious European competition as well. Now, before we get into the details, I need to make something crystal clear for you. This is a rumor. According to the report from Tutajev, these are clubs that have added Palestra to their transfer shortlist. This is not a done deal. This is not even advanced negotiations. This is interest at the shortlist stage. So let's keep that context in mind as we explore why this young Italian defender has caught the attention of so many top clubs across Europe. Who is Marco Pester? Let's start with the basics because not everyone watching this channel will be familiar with Marco Pester. He is a fullback who is owned by Atlanta, one of the top clubs in Italian football. However, he is not currently playing for Atlanta. He is on loan at Cagliari, and this is where the story gets interesting because his performances there this season have been turning heads across Europe. The report values Pester at £21 million according to Transfermarkt. Now, that is a significant amount of money, but in today's transfer market, especially for a young player with potential, it is actually quite reasonable if he continues his current trajectory. Palestra is an Italy under-21 international, which tells us that the Italian national team setup already sees promise in him. He is representing his country at youth level, which is always a good sign when you're scouting young talent. His journey this season. Here is what makes Palestra's story so compelling. He was brought into Cagliari initially as cover. That is an important detail. He was not signed to be their first choice starter. He was meant to be a backup option, someone to step in when needed. But football has a funny way of creating opportunities for players who are ready to seize them. Under Fabio Paisacane's management at Cagliari, Pester has completely exceeded expectations. He has not just broken into the team, he has firmly established himself as a regular starter. According to the report, He has featured in 15 of Cagliari's 16 league matches so far this season. That is remarkable consistency for a player who came in as backup. Think about what that means. Out of 16 games, he has played in 15. That is not someone getting occasional minutes. That is not someone rotating in and out of the team. That is a player who has made himself indispensable to his team's plans. The context at Cagliari. Now, let's talk about why Palestra's performances matter, even more given Cagliari's situation. The report tells us that Cagliari are in a relegation battle. They are currently sitting 2 points clear of 18th place Hellas Verona in Serie A. For those not familiar with Serie A, 18th place means relegation. So Cagliari are fighting for their lives in the Italian top flight. When a player performs consistently well for a team fighting relegation, that tells you something special about their character and ability. Relegation battles are pressure cookers. Every game matters. Every mistake can be costly. The fact that Palestra has emerged as an important figure in this fight shows mental strength and reliability beyond his years. The report specifically describes him as an important figure in their relegation battle. That is not language used lightly. In a relegation scrap, you need players you can count on, players who will not crumble under pressure, players who will give you 7 out of 10 performances week in and week out even when things are tough. Palestra appears to be providing exactly that. Why Atlanta loaned him out? Let's rewind a bit and understand why Palestra ended up at Cagliari in the first place. Last season, he was at Atlanta, but he only made limited appearances for their senior side. However, even in those limited chances, the report says he provided glimpses of his potential. So Atlanta clearly saw something in him, but they face a problem. They had established right-wing backs in their squad. The report specifically names Davide Zappacosta and Raul Bellanova as the competition Palestra was up against. These are experienced, proven players at Serie A level. The decision was made to loan Palestra out so he could secure regular minutes. This is actually smart squad management from Atlanta. Rather than having a promising young player sitting on the bench and stagnating, they sent him somewhere he could play every week and develop his game. And that decision is paying off. The report tells us that Palestra is currently strengthening his case for a place in Atlanta's first-team plans next season. His performances at Cagliari are making Atlanta take notice. He is showing them that maybe he is ready to compete with Zappacosta and Bellanova for a starting spot. The Premier League interest. Now we get to the part that matters most to us Arsenal fans. According to Tutajiv, Arsenal have added Marco Pester to their transfer shortlist for next summer. But we are not alone. Chelsea and Manchester United are also in the mix, and these 3 Premier League giants are reportedly set to go head-to-head for his signature. Let's break down what this means for each club, starting with Arsenal. Arsenal's situation. The report makes an interesting observation about Arsenal. It notes that Mikel Arteta has a preference for utilizing natural center backs in fullback positions. The evidence provided is his use of Ricardo Calafiori and Jurrien Timber in left and right back positions. This is absolutely true. We have seen Arteta use the system repeatedly. He likes defenders who can invert, who can step into midfield, who have the positional intelligence that comes from playing center back. It is a tactical preference that has become a signature of how Arsenal build up play. But here's the thing. The report also mentions that Arsenal have considerable depth at fullback. It lists Ben White, Miles Lewis-Skelly, and Piero Hincapié as alternative options alongside Calafiori and Timber. So the question becomes, if Arsenal already have all this depth at fullback, why would they be interested in adding another fullback to the squad? There are a few possible explanations. First, Arteta might be planning for the future. Football squads need refreshing. Players age, players get injured, situations change. Adding a young, talented fullback to the mix gives you options and competition. Second, Palestra's development might have caught Arsenal's eye as someone with exceptional potential who could grow into a key player. Sometimes you add players not for immediate needs, but because the talent is too good to pass up. Third, there might be uncertainty about some of the current options that we are not aware of from the outside. Chelsea's position. Chelsea already have Reece James and Malo Gusto in their ranks, according to the report. It also mentions that highly rated academy prospect Genesis Anchi is held in high regard at the club. So Chelsea, like Arsenal, have depth in the fullback positions. Reece James, when fit, is one of the best right backs in world football. Gusto has shown promise as a young player, and they are high on Anchi from their academy. Why would Chelsea be in for Palestra then? Well, there is the Reece James injury situation. James has struggled with injuries in recent seasons. Having quality depth behind him is not a luxury. It is a necessity for Chelsea. They cannot afford to be one injury away from problems in such a crucial position. Manchester United's interest. This is where the report gets really interesting. It suggests that a move to Manchester United appears the most logical option for Palestra. The reasoning provided is twofold. First, United would offer more opportunities for regular minutes compared to Arsenal and Chelsea, who already have depth in those positions. Second, and this is crucial, Palestra would be a natural fit for Ruben Amorim's 3-4-3 system. The report states that Palestra has already shown he is well suited to the demands of a wing-back role. This makes a lot of sense tactically. Amorim plays with wing-backs in his system. These are not traditional full-backs. Wing-backs need to cover enormous amounts of ground. They need to contribute both defensively and offensively, and they need exceptional stamina and tactical intelligence. If Palestra has been performing well as a wing-back type player at Colliery, then the transition to Amorim's Manchester United will be smoother than adjusting to other systems. The wider European competition. But here is where this transfer saga could get really complicated. The Premier League trio are not the only clubs interested. According to Tadijov, other European giants have also expressed interest in the youngster. The report specifically names Juventus, FC Barcelona, Atletico Madrid, and Bayern Munich as clubs who are also in a race for Palestra's signature. Think about that for a moment. That is some seriously elite company. Juventus, one of the biggest clubs in Italy. Barcelona, one of the most prestigious clubs in world football. Atletico Madrid, consistent Champions League competitors. Bayern Munich, the dominant force in German football. When clubs of that caliber are all looking at the same player, it tells you something. It tells you that across different leagues, different tactical systems, different scouting departments, everyone is seeing the same potential in Marco Pester. This also means that if Arsenal or Chelsea or Manchester United want to sign him, they're going to have to convince him that the Premier League is the right move for his career. They will need to offer playing time. They will need to offer the right wages. And they will need to offer a clear pathway to becoming a key player. What this could mean for Arsenal. Let's bring this back to Arsenal specifically, because that is what Arsenal Daily News is all about. If Arsenal are seriously interested in Palestra, what would it mean for the squad? First, it shows ambition. It shows that the club is constantly looking to improve, constantly scouting young talent, constantly planning for the future. Even when you have depth in a position, you should always be evaluating whether you can upgrade or add competition. Second, it fits Arsenal's recent transfer strategy. The club has been targeting younger players with high potential rather than established stars. Palestra at £21 million, if that is accurate, would fit that profile perfectly. He is young, he is talented, he is affordable relative to established stars, and he has room to grow. Third, it would add genuine competition for places. Competition drives standards up. When players know they have to fight for their spot every week, it brings out the best in them. However, there are questions that need answering. Where exactly would Palestra fit in Arteta's system, given the preference for inverted fullbacks who are natural center backs? Would he be willing to come and compete for minutes rather than being guaranteed a starting spot? Would Arsenal be his first choice given the competition from other massive clubs? The tactical fit question. Let's dig deeper into the tactical aspect, because this is crucial. The report highlights that Palestra has shown he is well suited to the demands of a wing-back role. Wing-backs are different from traditional full-backs. They operate in a back five system, or more accurately, a system that transitions between a back three in possession and a back five out of possession. Arsenal do not play with wing-backs. Arsenal play with a back four that often sees the full-backs invert into midfield when in possession. This is a very different role, requiring different skills. So if Palestra is thriving as a wing-back, can he adapt to being an inverted full-back in Arteta's system? Or would Arsenal be planning to use him differently than they use their other fullbacks? These are the kinds of tactical questions that Arsenal's coaching staff would need to be confident about before pursuing a deal. You cannot sign a player just because they are talented. They need to fit your system, your style of play, your tactical requirements. The transfer timeline. According to the report, this interest is for next summer. That is important context. We are not talking about a January transfer. We are talking about summer 2025. That gives everyone involved plenty of time. Palestra can continue developing at Colliery for the rest of the season. Clubs can continue monitoring his progress. Arsenal, Chelsea, and Manchester United can assess their needs as the season unfolds. It also means situations can change dramatically between now and then. Maybe one of these clubs will no longer need a fullback by summer. Maybe Palestra will have a poor second half of the season. Maybe one of the other European clubs will make an offer too good to refuse. Transfer shortlists are exactly that, lists of potential targets. They are not commitments. They are not agreements. They are clubs doing their homework and identifying players who might fit their needs. Why this story matters. Even though this is just a rumor at the shortlist stage, it is worth discussing because it gives us insight into how Arsenal are thinking about squad building. The fact that Arsenal are reportedly looking at a £21 million young fullback from Serie A tells us they are still shopping in that market segment. They are not just looking at Premier League-proven players. They are willing to take calculated risks on young talent from other leagues. It also shows that Arsenal are planning ahead. Summer is still months away, but the groundwork for transfers is being laid now. This is how modern football works. You do not wait until June to start thinking about who you want to sign. You scout, you watch, you compile shortlists, and then when the window opens, you are ready to move. Final thoughts. Marco Pester is a name that Arsenal fans should keep an eye on as we move through the rest of the season. Whether Arsenal actually make a move for him next summer remains to be seen. There's a lot of competition, both from Premier League rivals and from European giants. But the fact that Arsenal are reportedly interested tells us that the club sees something special in this young Italian fullback who has been lighting up Serie A during his loan spell at Colliery. Will Arsenal go head-to-head with Chelsea and Manchester United for his signature? Will Palestra choose the Premier League over interest from Barcelona, Juventus, Atletico Madrid, or Bayern Munich? Can he adapt his wing-back skills to fit into Arteta's tactical system? These are questions that will be answered in the months ahead. For now, all we know is that Arsenal's name is being linked with an exciting young talent, and that is always something worth getting excited about. Remember, this is a rumor from Tutajuv about clubs adding Palestra to their shortlists. It is not confirmed interest. It is not advanced talks. It is scouting and planning at this stage. But it gives us something to discuss, something to watch, and maybe, just maybe, a glimpse of a future Arsenal player. Thank you for watching Arsenal Daily News. Make sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and let me know in the comments whether you think Arsenal should pursue Marco Pester next summer. Would he fit our system? Is he worth £21 million? Would you prefer we spend that money elsewhere? I want to hear your thoughts. Until next time, keep the faith. And come on, you Gunners. Arsenal Daily News. Rodrigo Mendoza Transfer Analysis. Hello, Gooners, and welcome back to Arsenal Daily News. Today we have got some really interesting transfer news to discuss that could have major implications for our midfield situation. We are going to be diving deep into reports linking Arsenal with a young Spanish midfielder who is making waves in La Liga. So stick around because this one is definitely worth your attention. According to Sky Sports, Arsenal are showing serious interest in signing Elche midfielder Rodrigo Mendoza. Now, before we get too excited, let me be clear about what we know. This is Arsenal showing interest and being eager to land the player. We are not talking about a done deal here. We are talking about the club pursuing a target, which means this is still very much in the rumor and interest stage. But the fact that Sky Sports is reporting on it tells us that there is genuine substance to these links. So who exactly is Rodrigo Mendoza? Well, he is a 20-year-old Spanish midfielder currently plying his trade at Elche in La Liga. Now, some of you might not be super familiar with Elche, so let me give you some context. Elche are a club that have bounced between La Liga and the Segunda Division in recent years. They are not one of the giants of Spanish football, but they have a reputation for developing young talent. And it looks like Mendoza might be the latest gem to emerge from their academy. The report tells us that Mendoza is having a good campaign at Elche this season. He has been putting in impressive performances at the heart of their midfield, which is exactly the kind of form that gets you noticed by bigger clubs. In 15 appearances across various competitions this season, he has managed to score twice and provide 1 assist. Now, those numbers might not jump off the page at you, but remember, we are talking about a 20-year-old playing for a smaller La Liga club. The fact that he is contributing goals and assists from midfield at this stage of his development is actually quite promising. But what really catches the eye when you look at Mendoza's game is his defensive work. The statistics paint a picture of a midfielder who really gets stuck in and does the dirty work that often goes unnoticed. He has made 9 tackles this season, which shows he is not afraid to engage in duels and win the ball back for his team. He has also made 4 blocks, 3 interceptions, and 1 clearance. These might seem like modest numbers, but they demonstrate that Mendoza understands the defensive side of the game. He is reading situations, positioning himself well, and actively trying to break up opposition attacks. What is particularly impressive is his passing accuracy. Mendoza has maintained a pass completion rate of 82.6%. For a young midfielder playing in one of Europe's top leagues, that is a really solid number. It tells us that he is composed on the ball, makes good decisions, and can be trusted to keep possession for his team. In modern football, especially in the Mikel Arteta system, that kind of passing reliability is absolutely crucial. Now, let's talk about what kind of player Mendoza actually is, because understanding his profile will help us figure out how he might fit into Arsenal's setup. The report describes him as primarily a box-to-box midfielder. This is really interesting from an Arsenal perspective. A box-to-box midfielder is someone who can cover the entire length of the pitch, contributing both defensively and offensively. Think of players like Patrick Vieira in his prime, or more recently, someone like Moussa Dembele. These are players who can win the ball deep, drive forward with it, and support attacks. But here is where it gets even more interesting. The report also mentions that Mendoza can fill in as an attacking midfielder if asked to do so by his manager. This versatility is absolutely massive in modern football. Mikel Arteta loves players who can operate in multiple positions because it gives him tactical flexibility. If Mendoza can genuinely play as both a box-to-box midfielder and an attacking midfielder, that makes him an incredibly valuable asset. The article describes Mendoza as a good tackler who can time his challenges well to win possession back for his team inside his own half. This is exactly the kind of skill set Arsenal need to add more depth to their midfield. He is someone who can protect the defense, break up play, and then quickly transition his team from defense to attack. The report also mentions that he usually clears the danger when opposition attackers are on the offensive, which suggests good defensive awareness and positioning. Going forward, Mendoza can contribute by scoring and creating the odd goal for his team. Now, the phrase "the odd goal" might make it sound like he is not a major goal threat, and that is probably fair at this stage of his career. But remember, he is 20 years old and playing for Elche. If he moves to a club like Arsenal with better players around him and more attacking opportunities, those numbers could improve significantly. The article makes an important point about what Mendoza could bring to Arsenal. It says he would bring more quality and depth to Mikel Arteta's midfield department. This is crucial because depth has been an issue for Arsenal at times. When injuries hit or when the fixture schedule gets congested, having quality options on the bench becomes vital. Mendoza could provide that cover across multiple midfield positions. There is also a really interesting projection in the article. It suggests that Mendoza has what it takes to compete for a regular first-team spot at Arsenal in the coming years. Notice the phrase "in the coming years." This is not about Mendoza walking straight into the starting 11 next week. This is about Arsenal potentially investing in a young player who can develop and grow into a first-team regular over time. That is smart recruitment if it comes off. However, and this is important, the article does raise some concerns. There are questions about whether Mendoza can cope with the physical side and high intensity of the Premier League. This is a totally legitimate concern. La Liga and the Premier League are very different competitions. The Premier League is faster, more physical, and more intense. Players need time to adapt. We have seen plenty of talented players struggle with that transition over the years. But here is the thing. Mendoza is only 20 years old. If Arsenal sign him, they would presumably give him time to adapt and develop. He would not need to be the finished article on day one. Arteta has shown he is willing to be patient with young players when he believes in their potential. Just look at how he has handled players like William Saliba or Gabriel Martinelli. The article goes on to say that the future looks quite bright for Mendoza as long as he continues to improve with each season. At 20, he is at that perfect age where he has already gained professional experience but still has so much room to grow and develop. These are often the best value signings in football. You get a player who is past the raw teenager stage but still has their best years ahead of them. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the contract situation. Mendoza's current contract at Elche runs until the summer of 2028. That is a long contract. It gives Elche a lot of leverage in any negotiations. The article explicitly states that this could make it tough for Arsenal to sign him on the cheap next year. When a player has several years left on their contract, the selling club can demand a premium price. They are under no pressure to sell unless they receive an offer that is too good to refuse. So what kind of fee are we potentially talking about here? The article does not give us specific numbers, but we can make some educated guesses based on similar transfers. For a 20-year-old midfielder with several years left on his contract, playing regularly in La Liga, and attracting interest from a Premier League giant like Arsenal, you would probably be looking at somewhere in the region of 15 to 25 million pounds. Maybe more if there is a bidding war with other clubs. Is that good value? Well, that depends on your perspective. In today's market, £20 million for a promising 20-year-old midfielder is actually pretty reasonable. Arsenal have spent similar amounts on young players before, and it has worked out well. The key question is whether Mendoza has the potential to develop into a player worth significantly more than that. If Arsenal scouts believe he does, then it could be a smart investment. The article suggests that Arsenal would be wise to try everything they can assign Mendoza either this January or next summer. The mention of January is interesting. That would be a quick move, which suggests Arsenal might want to act before other clubs join the race. Summer gives more time to negotiate, but it also gives other clubs more time to get involved. Let us think about where Mendoza might fit into Arsenal's current squad. Right now, Arsenal's midfield options include players like Declan Rice, Martin Odegaard, Kai Havertz when he plays deeper, Jorginho, Thomas Partey, and some younger options. If Mendoza arrived, he probably would not walk straight into the starting 11, but he could provide valuable depth and competition for places. One scenario where Mendoza makes a lot of sense is as a long-term replacement for some of Arsenal's aging midfielders. Jorginho is in his 30s. Thomas Partey has had injury issues and is not getting any younger. Arsenal need a plan for the future, and signing promising young midfielders is part of that planning. Mendoza could learn from the experienced heads in the squad while gradually taking on more responsibility. There's also the tactical flexibility angle to consider. Mikel Arteta loves to tinker with his formations and systems. Having a midfielder who can play box-to-box or as an attacking midfielder gives Arteta more options. He could use Mendoza in different roles depending on the opposition or the game situation. That versatility is incredibly valuable over the course of a long season. Another factor to consider is the Spanish connection at Arsenal. Arteta himself is Spanish. So is Mikel Merino. Having Spanish speakers in the squad could help Mendoza settle in more quickly if he does make the move. Cultural and linguistic familiarity can really help young players adapt to a new league and a new country. It is one of those intangible factors that does not show up in statistics but can make a real difference. Now, let me address something important. We need to be realistic about what this transfer would mean. This is not Arsenal signing a ready-made superstar who will transform the team overnight. This is Arsenal potentially investing in a young talent who needs time to develop. There will be bumps along the way. There will be mistakes and learning experiences. Fans would need to be patient and give him time to adapt. But that is exactly the kind of recruitment that successful clubs do. They do not just buy established stars. They also invest in young players with high potential who can grow with the club. Liverpool did it with players like Andy Robertson and Fabinho. Manchester City do it constantly. Arsenal need to be doing the same. The question is whether Mendoza is the right player to bet on. That is ultimately a judgment call that Arsenal scouts and recruitment team need to make. They will have watched him extensively. They will have analyzed his performances in detail. They will have spoken to people who know him and have worked with him. If they decide he is worth pursuing, then we should trust that they have done their homework. From what we can see in this report, Mendoza ticks a lot of boxes. He is young. He is playing regularly at a decent level. He has defensive qualities that Arsenal need. He has versatility to play multiple positions. He has good passing statistics. And he is showing signs of being able to contribute offensively as well. Those are all positive indicators. The concerns about the physical side of the Premier League are valid, but they are not insurmountable. Plenty of Spanish midfielders have adapted successfully to English football. David Silva did it. Cesc Fabregas did it. Santi Cazorla did it. If Mendoza has the right mentality and Arsenal provide the right support, there is no reason he cannot do it too. Looking at the bigger picture, this potential move fits with Arsenal's broader transfer strategy under Arteta and sporting director Edu. They have focused on signing young, hungry players with high potential who can grow with the team. Gabriel Martinelli, Martin Odegaard, Bukayo Saka, William Saliba. These are all examples of that strategy working. Mendoza could be the next name on that list. The timing is also interesting. Arsenal are in a position now where they are competing for major trophies. They have pushed Manchester City hard in the Premier League. They are building something special. But to take that next step and actually win the league, they need more depth. They need more quality options in every position. Signing someone like Mendoza is about strengthening the squad and making sure Arsenal can compete on multiple fronts. So what should Arsenal fans make of all this? I would say cautious optimism is the right approach. This is interesting news. Mendoza looks like a promising player. The profile fits what Arsenal need, but it is still early stages. Nothing is done yet. Arsenal are interested, but that does not mean a deal will happen. Elche might demand too much money. Other clubs might get involved. Mendoza himself might prefer a different move. What we can say is that Arsenal are clearly looking to strengthen their midfield with young talent. That is encouraging. It shows ambition. It shows forward planning. Whether Mendoza ends up being the player Arsenal sign, or whether they move on to other targets, the fact that they are actively scouting and pursuing midfielders is positive news for fans. In conclusion, the potential signing of Rodrigo Mendoza is one to watch closely over the coming months. If Arsenal can get this deal done at a reasonable price, it could be a really smart piece of business. A 20-year-old midfielder with La Liga experience, defensive qualities, passing ability, and versatility across multiple positions. That is exactly the kind of player successful clubs should be targeting. Whether it happens in January or next summer, or whether it happens at all, remains to be seen. But one thing is clear. Arsenal are serious about strengthening their squad and building for long-term success. And that should excite every Gooner watching. Thanks for watching Arsenal Daily News. Make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you do not miss any of our transfer news and analysis. Leave a comment below and let me know what you think about this potential move for Rodrigo Mendoza. Would you like to see him in an Arsenal shirt? Do you think he has what it takes to succeed in the Premier League? I will see you in the next video. Come on, you Gunners.